At 11:40 p.m. on December 3, 1971, a massive underwater explosion rattled the windows of Visakhapatnam with the force of an earthquake. When Navy divers reached the seabed the next morning, they found the shattered remains of the PNS Ghazi, Pakistan's only long-range submarine. The Ghazi was a stealth asset designed to operate in total silence for weeks at a time. Its presence so close to a major Indian naval base raised a singular question: how did an undetectable hunter become the one being hunted? The wreckage on the seabed is the result of a logic trap that used Pakistan's own intelligence gathering against itself. By late 1971, the crisis in East Pakistan had reached a breaking point. Over 9 million refugees had crossed into India to escape a military crackdown, creating a humanitarian burden that made a full-scale war inevitable. For India, victory depended on a total naval blockade of the East. The key to that blockade was the aircraft carrier INS Vikrant, a 20,000-ton mobile airbase that could effectively seal the Bay of Bengal. Pakistan's countermove was the Ghazi. They dispatched the sub on a 2,200-mile journey with orders to find and sink the Vikrant before the first shots of the war were even fired. If the Ghazi succeeded, the Indian blockade would collapse. If it failed, the Pakistani forces in the east would be completely isolated. By November, Indian-trained commandos were already using limpet mines to sink Pakistani merchant ships. With the sea routes becoming a graveyard, the Ghazi was Pakistan's remaining option to regain control of the water. The sub's stealth was compromised by a routine supply request. India intercepted an encrypted Pakistani message asking for a specific grade of submarine lubricant out of Chittagong. This confirmed the Ghazi was officially on the hunt. Indian command realized they had no way to track a stealth sub in the open sea. Since they couldn't find the Ghazi, they decided to make the Ghazi find them. The Navy first moved the real INS Vikrant to a remote, uninhabited location in the Andaman Islands codenamed Port X-Ray. It was a location that didn't exist on most commercial charts. But hiding the carrier was only half the plan. To eliminate the threat, the Navy began feeding the Pakistani intelligence network a stream of carefully coordinated lies. The Navy broadcasted unencrypted radio messages about the Vikrant's arrival at Visakhapatnam. To ground the lie, the port ordered massive quantities of food, supplies only a carrier needs. Spies reported this, matching the docks to the signals. Finally, the destroyer INS Rajput sailed the coast, broadcasting high-powered signals to mimic the carrier's radar signature. Based on the intercepted radio traffic and the physical evidence of the food orders, the Pakistani command issued the intercept order on November 25th. The Ghazi turned toward Visakhapatnam. Pakistan's intelligence apparatus had been led to a single conclusion: the Vikrant was waiting in the harbor. The Ghazi arrived at the harbor entrance on November 27th. Because the inner channel was only 15 meters deep, the sub couldn't enter without being seen. Instead, the crew began laying a minefield across the narrow bottleneck to sink the Vikrant as it tried to leave. While laying a mine, the sub spotted an approaching Indian ship. The captain ordered a panicked, steep dive to avoid detection. The massive submarine struck the seabed, embedding itself in the mud and bending its own forward torpedo tubes. The INS Rajput was returning to port when its sonar team detected a series of metallic vibrations from the harbor floor, the sound of the trapped sub trying to surface. The Rajput immediately dropped 2 heavy depth charges directly onto the source. The explosion from the depth charges triggered the explosives in the Ghazi's own damaged torpedoes. The sub was destroyed by the very weapons it had brought to the harbor. With the underwater threat gone, the real INS Vikrant emerged from Port X-Ray. For the remainder of the war, the carrier operated with total freedom, enforcing a blockade that prevented any Pakistani reinforcements from reaching the east. This total isolation was a primary factor in the surrender of 93,000 Pakistani soldiers, the largest military surrender since World War II, which led to the birth of Bangladesh. The sinking of the Ghazi removed the only strategic counter to the Indian blockade. It demonstrated that in modern warfare, a successfully sold lie can be as effective as a direct hit.